In one of my previous videos, I had this comment on there asking me to talk about how I framed my resume for the Canadian jobs. So in this video, I'll be sharing what my resume looks like and walking you through each section of my resume so that you know what is applicable for each of those sections. So stick around. Welcome back. My name is Aku Obi and I share valuable insights with international students on how to excel and thrive in Canada. In today's Canadian job market, it isn't just competitive, it is different. If you're still using the same formats for resumes that you used back in maybe the early 2000s, you are already screening yourself out of the process. Today, I'll be sharing my resume that I used to get 2 full-time jobs before my graduation. Please hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so. Now, let's talk about the format of my resume. This is what my resume looks like. As you can see, it is just 2 pages. I highlighted them in red because I'm going to be talking about each section separately in this video. I'll share more insights on why I compressed it into 2 pages when I'm talking about my professional summary section. So, your typical Canadian resume should have sections starting from your data section that has at least your name, phone number, and email address. Just basic relevant information about yourself. After my name and contact information section, I have a professional summary section where I summarize my skills and what I am looking for. Then after my professional summary, I have a core competency and technical skills section immediately after that. Below the core competencies and technical skills section is where I have my professional and relevant work experience. Then after that, I have my education, certification, and volunteering sections. This volunteering section is an addition to my resume. I didn't used to have a volunteering section in my resume before I came to Canada. But of course, you have to act like the Romans when you are in Rome. So I had to put a volunteering section because employers most times want to see that. Now, let's go into more details about each of these sections. For your header, you just need basic information about yourself. Your name, your contact details, your email address, and that is just it. You don't have to write your full house address. If for any reason you need to even put an address on your header, you can just simply write the city where you live in. Some people do not even put address at all. They just put Canada there. If you also have a link to your LinkedIn page, you can include it in that section. Moving on to the professional summary section, I put it there that I'm a second-year master's student studying that course. And I had to put it there because of the role. This role was for people who had just finished this course in school. And also, the roles didn't have an immediate start date. It was one of those roles where if you apply today, you are going to resume maybe in May 2027. So that was the kind of role it was. So they were specifically looking for people in my category as students, and I had to state it there. That would mean that by the time I get my offer and I'm resuming for the job, I've already completed my program. You don't need to state that if it doesn't apply to you. Another thing that you can see from my professional summary is that I compressed my years of experience. Even though I have way over 5 years of work experience, I had to compress it to 5 years experience so that it would reduce the emphasis on my overqualification for the role and also compress the number of pages of my resume. In my resume, I reduced my years of experience up to just 5 years of work. Every other thing that came after 5 years, I removed them from my resume. That is why my resume is just 2 pages. Unless you're applying for maybe a director role or a senior manager role, I don't see the reason why you should have 10 years plus of work experience in your resume when the role you are applying for is an almost entry-level role or a role that doesn't require that number of years of experience. You will only be doing yourself a disfavor. Another point I want to make regarding the number of years of experience is that putting it on the resume doesn't mean that when you get to the interview, you cannot talk about those other years of experiences. Remember that your resume is just to help you pass all that initial filtering stage that the Gen AI system has to put your resume through. So When you get to the interview, you can talk more about those other years of experiences and what you did on those jobs. But for this first stage, it's good that you compress it and not make it too bulky for the screening tools or for the recruiter who is reading through your resume. Notice that my professional summary did not say objective statement. Back in the days, you would usually see resumes having an objective statement where you're saying something like seeking competitive roles to help your esteemed organization and all of those cliche sentences that are so early 2000s. All that is gone right now. Instead of writing that objective summary to sound that way, you need to write your professional summary to sound like you are already connected to the role that you're applying for. Moving on to the core competencies and technical skills section, this is where you summarize your skills that you already have. Also, go to the job posting, look at the skills that they require there, and copy it exactly the way it is stated on that job posting if you know you have the skill. Take the word the way it is and bring into your core competency skills. That way, your resume will be at an advantage when the ATS system or the AI tool scans through your resume for keywords. Back in the day, the skills section used to be at the bottom of your resume, but right now it has to be immediately after your professional summary, such that even without an AI tool, when an employer goes through your resume for the first few seconds, they already know what you're capable of by reading your professional summary and your core competencies and technical skills section. So, if they now need more details to see what you have done in the past regarding those skills, they will now scroll down to your work experience to see how you applied those skills on the jobs that you've done in the past. You need to also know that most companies use AI tools to screen your resume and categorize you as maybe high skilled, medium skilled, or however they categorize candidates before they invite you for interviews. Now, most of these AI tools use the first 20% section of your resume to categorize you first before pushing your resume forward. So, you want to make sure that the first 20% section in your resume has the relevant information that is required to categorize you accordingly as a top candidate and then push your resume forward to the next phase of the interview. Moving on to my professional and relevant experience section. Before I came to Canada, this section I will usually just list what I do on the job. But when I came to Canada, I had to make that experience translatable to the Canadian context. You need to be able to speak the Canadian business language in your resume. Don't just list what you did in your role in your home country. Find a way to translate that experience into the Canadian job market. For example, let's say you worked as a bank teller in your home country. Instead of just writing bank teller in your resume, you can rephrase that to say something like, provided financial services in a high volume environment equivalent to Canadian top 5 banks. Or if you worked as a project manager in your country, instead of just saying you managed a budget, you can translate that budget into the Canadian business language and say, managed $2 million Canadian equivalent budget by using agile methodologies or whatever language you use as a project manager. It is also important to include measurable metrics in your resume. As you can see, for each of these my job roles for different organizations, I have numbers attached to the work that I did. I helped 30 students. I achieved this amount as percentage improvement on this work. You have to be able to translate your work experience and what you did to how it impacted the organization. So it's called measurable metrics. If you work on invoices, how many of these do you finish in a day, in a month, and how does that translate to the business requirements at the end of the day? Learn how to sell yourself. By using measurable metrics, it shows that you're not just existing in those organizations, but that you actually had an impact in the organization. Since we're talking about professional experience, some of you might be asking yourself, how can I gain Canadian work experience? As you can see from the first job role that I had in my professional experience section, That role was a role I played as a graduate assistant on campus. As a student, I made it my duty to have at least one Canadian experience to top up my resume before I graduated. I have two videos talking about how to gain Canadian work experience as an international student while studying, and also how to volunteer strategically so that your volunteering experience can come into your professional work experience section of your resume. The links to those videos are attached, and I'll also be leaving them in the description box so that you can make reference to them later on. Now, depending on the Canadian work experience you were able to gather either through volunteering or otherwise, some people may not have had the opportunity to work on any of those volunteering roles or paid roles on campus. So what do you do? After your professional experience section, you can add a section that says project experience. In that section for project experience, you can list out your capstone projects that you've worked on, and also if you've used Canadian companies as your case studies in those projects, you can list them out and the impacts, maybe plus your findings as well. Just include a summary of that and the impact of that project in the resume. The next section on my resume is the education section, where I listed my master's degree as at when I applied for the jobs. I put it in progress because of the role I was applying for. If you're applying to a higher role, you don't need to put in progress. Just put the master's degree there, whether you've completed it or not, because usually recruitments take time. So hopefully by the time you finish the recruitment process, you have completed your degree by then. I put in progress here because I had stated something in my professional summary at the beginning of my resume where I said that I'm a second year master's degree student. So putting that in progress there was to just emphasize on that I'm almost done and that I'll be done in 2026. And if you have more than one degree, you can list them there. Note that in this section of your education, do not include the country for your degree. All you need to do in this section, state the degree and the university where you got the degree from. Maybe the year. This is just to save you from some of the system bias that some of these AI tools may have, especially relating to Canadian jobs. So don't put your country when it comes to listing your education. I don't do that as well. Next section on my resume is my certification. I listed my certifications, professional certifications, and other certificates that I have. So that is up to you. If you have certificates that might be relevant to the job, you may include them in this section. Otherwise, just move on to the volunteering section. This volunteering section, like I mentioned earlier, I just started adding them to my Canadian resume. My resume back home didn't used to have volunteering experience. Why this is important in your resume is because the Canadian employer wants to see what you do outside of work. They want to see that you have a life outside of work. So they are big on work-life balance, not just work, work, work. So you also want to show that you are involved in maybe community initiatives and other professional development initiative outside of work. So it's important that you list a volunteering experience here. Look around you. I'm sure that when you think about it properly, you must have done one or two volunteering work during the course of your study. Always bring them in here. Maybe you volunteered for a career fair, faculty events, just put them in here. Let them see that you are able to work collaboratively with other people outside of your team. I have a video on how to volunteer strategically to gain relevant Canadian work experience. I'm going to attach a link to that video so that it takes you directly to the video. You can save it and watch later and also learn a thing or two from it. So in summary, for international students and new graduates in Canada, your resume should usually be one page if you are an early career professional, or maybe 2 pages if you have relevant work experience to add to your resume. Your resume should have a clean layout. You can see mine is straightforward. Do not put pictures, do not put screenshots. Use text-only formats. Write your resume on a Word document and then you can save it to PDF when you want to submit. You don't need to put your SIN number. You don't need to put your student status on your resume. You don't need to put your marital status, date of birth, your full house address. Do not put your nationality or your SIN number or your visa information on your resume. All of that is very unnecessary. Also, try to use what we call impact verbs. Some things like responsible for, led this project, managed this project, supervised this. Those are impact verbs. Use them in your resume when describing the work that you did. Please note that your resume is just 50% of the battle. You still have another 50% remaining to battle with. That remaining 50% might be saved through a referral by somebody whom you've already built a relationship with in the past. Now you have the good resume. How do you put it out there? In Canada, referrals are taken very seriously, and that helps them build trust with you. It helps the employer to trust you if a trusted person refers you to them. So when you have a good resume, you've applied for the job, if you've built a rapport in the past with somebody that works with the firm, all you have to do is message them maybe on LinkedIn to say, hey, I applied for this job in your firm, or I want to apply for this role in your firm. Would you mind giving me a reference, or would you mind being a referral for me? When you build relationships early with people, when you need them, it becomes seamless for them to help you. There's a popular saying that when you need a relationship, it's already too late to build that relationship. So make sure you are networking strategically. I have a video on how to network strategically. Click on the link and it will take you directly to that video. And I'll also put it in the description box so that you can go and learn a thing or two from the video. If you're feeling overwhelmed, don't worry, you're not alone. Leave your questions in the comment section for me, and I respond to questions as soon as possible. Hit the subscribe button because I'll be making a video on how to maximize or utilize AI tools to create your resume and your cover letter. Make sure to like this video, share with your network, and turn on notifications so that whenever I upload my videos, you get the notifications for them. Let me know in the comment section what has been your biggest struggle so far in getting a job or applying for jobs in Canada. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you learned a thing or two from this video. Until my next video, bye for now.